Board games, it's what I'm talking about in some manner. Board game adjacent things, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing, and I'm going to review some podcasts which may or may not be new to you. Probably you'll already have heard about much of them, but then again, you might not, and maybe I'll tell you about something that you like, and maybe something that you might enjoy, something that maybe you should give a try and see if you can manage to employ it in your daily routine. It's what we're talking about. Podcasts. I'm not gonna shout. Hello, and good morning to everyone. And I am Bez, and I am going to be blethering about board games and maybe singing a couple of songs along the way. And so, yeah, that is me. It is the Big Beats and Board Game Blether. So today, I am going to be reviewing a whole bunch of podcasts, and I am also going to be talking about Alba. And you know what? If I might also talk a wee bit about my city. I've only played it a couple of times. Played it once with my dad without putting any stickers on, and then yeah, I'll talk all about that. I'll talk about how I got stuff. I'll talk about my biases. I'll talk about all these things. But yeah, let's get into it. So, actually, you know what? With a lot of further ado, let's just put up this banner. So that's some of the on-board games or sorts. And I should have put really some commas being these, but anyway, let's recent highlights, live and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other recent highlights. What has been going on? If you are watching this, even if it's after the facts, let me know in the comments what has been the highlights of your past day. Because every day, even if it's a wee bit rubbish, like did you manage to brush your teeth? Did you eat something that tasted good? Did you manage to get out the house? Did you manage to get showered? Even if none of those things, maybe, I don't know, the fact that you woke up and, whatever it is, hopefully there's something that we can kind of put up and say, you know what, this life had these nice moments. And so let's, get into it. So what have been some of my recent highlights? Well, I'm going to show you that a photo of the game that I played is, of course, not showing up. My City. So My City is a game that's sent by Cosmos UK, and I got it in the box. You saw me opening the box. I did play it with my family. I will talk about my thoughts on that in maybe a minute. I also had a lovely meal cooked by my sibling, and this morning I did go on a lovely walk where there was a beautiful gore sunrise, crack of gold and orange and fire spilling over the horizon, the pastel colors washing overhead. And yeah, because of my internet, it might take a while to see this. I might try changing onto my phone camera if this is too slow, to my phone internet, even hotspotting. But yeah, you can see there, like walking about, just gorgeous, walking around. I was feeling like getting out of the house. Yeah, sometimes it's horrible. Sometimes it's just drizzly. Sometimes it's a grey sky. And from that, I look over the horizon. It's like, okay, it's various shades of grey. Okay, if really closely, there's interesting parts. There's kind of bluish grey, and there's darker grey. At least there's variation in thickness of the clouds. Mostly, it's not even a motley. Mostly just a uniform, homogeneous grey filling up the entire sky. But once in a while, you go out and you see something delightful like this, where all the trees, the leaves that fell out several months ago, now replaced by fiery gold, blues, the purples overhead, and enjoying a little podcast. I think I was listening to our turn and just catching up because they had one show. Okay, so those were my recent highlights. Now, I said that, oh yeah, I've made it through Alba. Where's my notes? Yeah, Alba, it's like a lot of notes of, okay, I didn't print out anything, but I made the notes of, okay, here's my character stuff, and here's the little chapters that I went to, and checking out all the things. Now, Alba, I'll get a bit more into that later on. Yeah, that really nice open world adventure book. And morning, Rob. I'm just talking about read highlights, and I might skip over my telephone once more. And so apologies if I did for a minute. It's bad times when your home internet is not as good as your mobile phone. Anyway, this is the last picture that I took, and I just want to make this bigger. So, yeah, I really enjoyed my walk around this morning. I just cannot get over how privileged I feel to be able to drag myself out of the bed. And I feel this massive sense of achievement. Then I get back home and I had a little bit of a jog at times. I don't know, just that gold and the birds chirping overhead, as I mentioned there, reminding me of Elizabeth Hargrave, because I'm always reminded of Elizabeth Hargrave nowadays whenever I see birds. And the more that I mention and acknowledge that connection, the more that I just continue thinking of Elizabeth Hargrave, because let's be honest, Wingspan is a good game, and there are almost certainly more birds in Wingspan. I am going to guess there's more birds in Wingspan than there are in every other board game combined. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that, because there's a lot of birds in Wingspan, like if you add all the expansions. Anyway, yeah, so that is that, and but it has been a wonderful day, and let's talk about my city very quickly. So my city, it made me think of a couple of things. Yesterday, firstly, one of my parents said, what's the point in getting a new game if you already have a game that you enjoy? And at the time, I'd sort of explained the rules to one of my parents, and then said, okay, this is how it's played, and then they hadn't been too excited. I kind of mentioned to my other parents, saying, hey, would you like to play the game once before we actually start properly, just so you know what's going on? Because I know you're just out of the hospital and you're feeling a bit low on energy. And so they played a game with me without putting down. And hello, G, things are happening. I have not played either of the expansions for Wingspan, I am afraid, so I cannot comment on either of them. And hello, Ben and Kelly Lee, who are starting to set up things, so go and check them out. Actually, let me give a wee shout out to the Game Cupboard. Let me do that. And so, yep, you were apparently last up to some Jackbox party packs last night. So lovely to see you. Anyway, so going back to my city. So firstly, I played a game with one of my parents to make sure that they understood the rules. Even with that, during the game they were the slowest. I mean, they've just come out of hospital, lots of stuff going on. Anyway, with everyone else who played it, and it was such an obstacle to get everyone to write the name of their city on the board. Straight away, everyone was like, "Oh my god!" But Matt Valley, but if we do this, you won't be able to play it again with someone else. What then? And maybe what if we put a bit of paper on top of our boards and then we don't put things? And I had to explain, look, there are stickers. The stickers go on the boards. There will be permanent changes. And without having these permanent changes, you're not really playing the game. So we need to do this. And it was really fascinating hearing those same arguments that came out of, board gamers, maybe when Risk Legacy and Pandemic Legacy came out, everyone was saying, oh my god, but this game you can only play it once. Now, there is the question of environmental impacts. And when I get down to really exploring it, when I've gone through it and I really talk through it, but I just wanted to acknowledge those couple of things. That firstly, the people that I'm playing with are complete non-gamers. Like, one of my parents would be happy to play nothing except for Rummy. The other parents would be happy to play nothing except for Rummy because other parent plays it, and backgammon, with us as a two-player game. But for me, it's like, yeah, you want to occasionally play other things because you want a variety of experiences. I don't just want to watch only one TV show. I like there being multiple TV shows, and I put this up in the board game group Big to Cock, and it's amazing how different it is. And we did overcome that whole, got everyone to write down the name, and I said, please write down your city, and we can't start until you've done that. And then, yeah, we started up, and I won with 8 points. Then it was 6, 3, 2. Anyway, but I've got these extra rocks, and my siblings really appreciated the catch-up mechanism. So those are my first impressions. It is exceedingly coloured by the people I play with, as always. Thank you for that lurk, by the way, Rob. I appreciate that lurk. So if you have any recent highlights or achievements that you want to shout out, tell us. Otherwise, let's talk about brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? What's a little thing which is brilliant? Let me talk about reading. Yeah, I've not talked about reading before. Reading and writing, such a brilliant thing. I mean, a way of, you see this, and if you can read my writing, which maybe it's a bit messy for you, I don't know. There's no major spoilers here. There's no major spoilers here. That's from the first couple of chapters. But if you can read that, then you've got this memory. You write something, and whether you're reading a book, whether you're reading someone else's notes, whether you're reading an instruction manual, it's imparting this information into your brain, and also the manner of the writing. The media is almost, it influences the communication. If you take a Jane Austen book, then part of the joy of Jane Austen, to me at least, is in the word choice. You could have exactly the same story told with different words, and it would not be the same. I would not have enjoyed it as much. You can take a rule book and use slightly different words, and so maybe make it a bit more, maybe make it a bit simpler, maybe And it's all about the style because there's so much that goes into writing, the word choice, and just the way you read, the way your eye darts around a page, taking in word after word after word, transforming them into ideas. And it's the way maybe you sound out those words in your mind. Maybe you appreciate the rhythm of the language, and there's something majestic about all of that. So, with that out of the way, if anyone, oh, where's my questionably quick questions gone? If anyone would like to ask any questionably quick questions, then feel free to ask anything at this point. So, questionably quick questions. It is 10:15. I am in Glasgow, and I will give you 5 minutes to come up with any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to carry on with all the things that I am reviewing. And then I'll go through my podcasts. Actually, I'll start off with Alba, then I'll go to the podcasts, and then I'll probably maybe, finish up in some manner. We'll see what happens. So, any questionably quick questions whilst I load up Alba from my thing? So, Alba, let me start off talking, I guess, about my biases. And yep, Alba. Okay. So Alba is published or will be published by Inside the Box Games. So let me talk about how I got this and how my relationship with Inside the Box and with Peter. I've known Peter for a while. I remember when Subterra was being launched on Kickstarter, I knew Peter well enough that I went over to the office and there was some sort of party. We live maybe 10, 15 miles apart, quite close, maybe less than that. Close enough for me to cycle over and join in an evening party for sure. And close enough emotionally that when it was time for me to have a pre-launch event for what I hoped would be a Kickstarter a couple of years ago for a game where New Blether, Peter offered to let me use parts of the office for that. We are close, and we're so close that I've got a lot of respect for Subterra. It's not personally my style of game. I've got a lot of respect for Newspeak. That is the kind of game that I would like to play more of. And I've got a lot of respect for Rose as a developer who's sometimes come to Friday daytime playtest, and Peter in terms of values, philosophically and politically. Now, not to get too much into that, but I just want to ground this and say, yes, also, as a designer, I do have a co-design, Seize the Power, signed up with Inside the Box. So I have a personal interest in making Inside the Box a company that continues to do well and makes good stuff and has a continued financial success so that they can do good stuff with my game. And hello, Alex, I'm just talking about my biases with Inside the Box, who are, hopefully going to be doing a great job with Seize the Power. And looking forward to getting stuck back into that. Anyway, so what is Alba? Let me stop the screen and share actually. Peter asked me to not give, that's chapter 21. Let me not show that. Peter asked me not to show any spoilers, which I will go ahead with. So Alba is a choose your own adventure style book. I think that is technically copyrighted. So let's call it a game book, except that according to some people, it wouldn't be called a game book. It's maybe an adventure book. I don't think that's copyrighted. And it's a book, you know the kind I mean, where you make choices and eventually you might find some sort of ending. Let me share the screen. 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Alba, it's a book. Yep, it is a book. So this is chapter 1, The Voyage, and this is the very start of it. Yep, I agree, the illustrations are beautiful. I think there's 36 chapters, I want to say. Um, I'm going to say there are 7 endings. Let me talk about how I played this. So, and how I got this. Peter offered it to me. Peter said, "Hey, would you like to play this?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not sure. I don't like reading things on my screen." And then I said, "I'll leave it for now." And then Alba came out and I was like, "You know what? I'm interested in this. I am interested to see what they're doing. And could you send me a copy? I'll have you on the show if we can get a thing." And yep, inside the box, I've got vested interest. Thank you. Anyway, so yeah, chapter 1, The Voyage. This is the start. "Don't be afraid of the old world," Vola had told you back in the vault. "It's where we're all from, after all." The boat gives a subtle groan as you furl the mainsail and finally ease up the pace you've been putting her through. The boards creak beneath your feet. A speeding bullet, the hull cuts through the waves on momentum alone. The motion reminds you of skinning a beast, a knife neatly parting flesh and bone. You take a moment to look to the horizon and smile as you bask in the reassuring sight of land. A long grey strip sitting on the top of dark water. The wind picks up a little and it whips your coat at your back. With it behind you, it feels like nature herself is encouraging you onward safely to your destination. You crouch beneath the boom as it swings loose from the mast and signal to Victor at the tiller. He nods silently and turns the boats in towards the coast. 24 days. For 24 days, the three of you have scanned the horizon, read sea charts, and done little else save for a fleeting game of cards by lamplight, squashed in between the narrow bunks of the crew cabin. The work of sailing the ship itself has been steady and kept you on your toes, though the journey has been reasonably quiet. While you knew you should be glad of it, you somehow couldn't help but have wished for a little more excitement, rather than just days upon days of endless chopping waters. With all things considered, you're happy to finally see land again. Your mind meanders back to some time after the first week, when Goda, your other companion, suggested naming the boat. With little else to do, the pair of you had discussed the idea for almost the entire day, batting suggestions back and forth, happy to distract from the monotony that had thus far defined the mission. Victor had endured the squabbling in contemplative silence, spending his time on the deck and staring out to the horizon for hours. It was only as the night settled across your little vessel that he spoke a single word, his voice sending out a tiny puff of frost that was soon eaten by the darkness. "Marlin, turn to 1.1. Arc, turn to 1.2. Speedwell, turn to 1.3. And out of respect to anyone who might be wanting to play this, I'm not even going to make the first choice, but that gives you an idea of the sorts of writing, and I'll go back and leave that on the side. So that gives you an idea of the style of writing. I thought I was just going to skim through it. I found myself engrossed in it. I'm just counting. There's 36 chapters, and 4 of them. I know what they are, but I didn't. No, wait, 6 of them. I know what they are, but I didn't go to out of the 29. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So another 5. So 11 of them. So 29 minus 11 makes 18. So I basically, sorry, Elaine. No, we're not playing. This is just me explaining what I think of this. And I've read it through. I really took my time with it. As you go through this book, okay, so this is a big book. It's 1,000 and let me actually 1,703 pages. But bear in mind that the pages don't. It does include. Oh, sorry, it includes a little bit of ending, and the pages don't have masses of text, but it's certainly bigger than any of these books that I've got with me. I mean, here's a fighting fantasy book. Here's how many is this? Like 5. I would say it's of a similar density to Pretty Little Mistakes. But as Rob mentioned, I mean, Rob, when I was talking about this a week ago, Rob mentioned that, word count is not a reason to buy a book. And I 100% agree. A reason to buy a book is because you're interested in the story, because you like the way that the game works. I wonder if there would be too many spoilers. So did I complete the story? Yes, I did. I played it through, let's say, legitimately, not backtracking. I am going to admit there were a couple of points where I was like, oh, I really don't know. I kind of want to peek a little bit. All of the sections are really long. That section that I just read, that is the typical length of a section. I would say the shortest section in Alba is as long as pretty much the longest section in a fighting fantasy book. This is a book with a more meandering style. It's a book that allows you to settle down, that gives you lots of text before you have to carry on, before you have to then make a choice. I mean, with the Kickstarter, they've got a tiny excerpt from one of the choices, and I'm actually going to, something about, do you kill them or do you not? And the whole lead up to that, I think that there's a lead up to that's 3 pages, and it's like, okay, this happens and this happens to you, and then a person comes and there's, oh my god, there's this scuffle, and then you're manage to overpower them, and do you kill them or do you let them go? And this is like and there's a lot going on. Sometimes you do go into infinite loops. I am going to say, as a small criticism, it happens with it happens with this book, where we were, if you remember, when we were in front of the river, you try crossing, then you come back and you end up in exactly the same place. It's a slightly similar thing. Early on in chapter 2, you are in front of a house, you look around, and then if you look, then it says, okay, you look, and do you want to walk on or do you want to look a bit more? And then if you look a bit more, it sends you to another chapter where it says, okay, do you look at this, do you look at that, do you look at the other? And then if you look at one of those things and then you say you want to look a bit more, then it keeps sending you to this chapter. So you do have to, as a player, be kind of sensible. Yes, if you keep on looking at the architecture of the house, of course you're going to keep getting the same information. And maybe that's not a bad thing. It kind of, as a player, there is some ownership in this book. Now, let me talk about the structure, okay? So you start off with chapter 1, and then you've got different paths, and then it meanders through. And then you've got chapter 2, and then there's different paths, and it meanders through. After chapter 2, everything changes. And you really, if you're not using the map that they've provided that you can print out, you really want to have a big, bits of paper that you write down notes, and there's a few statistics that will matter at the end. That will determine the sort of ending that, might have even said too much, but like the choices early on will affect the later bits. And sometimes it gets dark. In terms of tone, in terms of whether this is suitable for kids, after I finished reading it, after I finished my genuine path, I did go through all the endings because I was really curious. And then and thanks for coming back, Rob. It's lovely to have you with us. And I did explore some of those other possibilities on the map that I maybe didn't. And it was, okay, there's at least one F word that I noticed in the book, and there's at least one, let's say, it's a basically the F word, but misspelled, maybe because, I don't know, because they only wanted to have the F word once in the entire book. I don't know. Anyway, so if you are giving the book to a child, I would say that this is almost young adult literature, except that if you're unhappy with, yep, exactly, this is all Alba. This is just me talking about my experience with Alba. So once you finish chapter 2, you've got your map. You kind of write down where things are, and then you keep a note of where you're able to go to. And so you just look around and you're thinking, okay, do I go to this place on the map? Or do I go to this other place on the map? I would say that it's this chapter, this kind of open world nature, that really alters the dynamic of it. It feels more like, okay, let's look. If something like this is more like, I don't know, an old school SNES game where you're going through and there's one correct path, and then eventually you go and then you manage to make it. Something like Alba, like, let me see if I can. Something like Alba, which, there we go. That's the front cover of the book. It feels more like, I don't know, what, Red Dead Redemption or something like that, where, yeah, sure, there's a story, there's an objective, you want to find these people, and it's yeah, I'm just going to flash up the spoiler tag for about I'm just going to spoil a little bit of chapter 1 and 2. Remember, there are 29 chapters plus another 7 endings, which makes 36 chapters. So I'm just going to talk about chapters 1 and 2. So if you don't want to listen to this, then mute this until I remove the spoiler tag. That's the way it works. So early on, you are, and this is even the grounding for the thing, this is set several hundred years in the future, maybe like 2119-ish. You are coming out of the old world, out of the vault, you find people, you find these people who've been living in the old world, which is an allusion to, it's never made entirely clear what the vault is, but you get the impression it's kind of some sort of like a giant bunker that's maybe safe from all sorts of nuclear radiation. Anyway, everyone's out in the real world with the open air, and it's like, oh my god, what's going on? This is amazing, everyone. And then, okay, I'm going to go out on an expedition and I'm going to gather information for you. And then you come back, and because of this big storm, everyone has just packed up and left, and that is where your real mission begins, where your real mission is to find everyone again. And then along the way, you're going to find raiders who are maybe raiding people, and find all sorts of interesting vegetation and all sorts of interesting landmarks, and run into adventures. Some people will ask you to do things. You will have to make some moral choices, and you will have to, some of the things will affect your mind. I mean, it's a little bit, it's not just one stat. It's not like Cthulhu Sanity, but there are different things that affect what kind of person you become along this adventure. And then it just all culminates. Finally, you might make it back home. And then if you're familiar with the hero's journey, you know what this is all about. It is a typical hero's journey book where you're going the call to the, I mean, it's weird because you've got the first call to the adventure, which is just going out, and then the second call to adventure, which is, hey, wait a minute, I guess the reluctance is kind of going back home. And then it's like, okay, you're forced into it. And then, anyway, just drawing illusions. Anyway, let's see if I've got any. I always get caught out on these sorts of analogies as I never played Red Dead Redemption or Honestness, says Rob. Okay. Anyway, so let me bring back the. So I'm no longer talking about spoilers, but having hopefully that gives a wee bit of a grounding of what kind of thing it is and whether the subject matter even is interesting for you. And honestly, look, I'm not going to say that any game book, just because it's a game book, you have to get out and buy it. I mean, it's if you like comics, then you might enjoy those comic game books by if you like typical fantasy, then buy this. If you like romantic comedies, then buy this. And if you like Jane Austen's and you want game books, then buy this. And if you like sorts of, I would say the writing throughout is good. It's solid. It's not particularly dense. I would say the writing reminds me of something like Dan Brown, or it keeps you immersed. It kept me engrossed. It was easy to read. It was reassuring. It was enjoyable. It told me what I needed to know. I did have to inject a little bit of my own imagination at points, but it's an easy read. And this is the kind of thing that after 2, 3, 4 sittings, you will have finished it. And you feel a little bit less motivation to have the whole, okay, what goes on in this section? Okay, maybe I'm going to... Now, actually, in this book as well, in the book about create your own Jane Austen adventure, there are a lot of these sections. I'm actually looking at page 208. Page 208 lasts 3 pages, and so that's a long section as well. It's not the first, it's not, but it's trying to bring something new, and the thing that really is new isn't the length. It's not the word count. That's actually a distraction. The thing that is really interesting about this book is the chapter layout, that within each chapter, you've got these sub-stories. If you go to... Okay, mild spoiler for the first 2 chapters, but if you go... Actually, no, I'm not going to say it. If you go to whatever chapter 5 is called, which you find out in I think it's literally the first chapter, you will find out, okay, this is what I see, and you will always be going to the same place, and you will have broadly a similar experience. But when you go to that location, what you do at that location and the smaller choices you make in chapter 5 will vary whether you become, what happens? Do you become friends with these people? Do you not? Do you feel some ownership? And some of the sections, they do collapse, and certainly within the first couple of chapters, it does retain a lot of, let me say, it's a really simple flowchart within the first couple of chapters, but after that, it completely explodes. And as you start having additional items that you pick up, extra little things that you don't want to backtrack, you want to keep going, you want to find out and make this mission that you went on your one true mission. Do you want to find the compassionate path, or will you? And I think that, yeah, it's a great book. I'm struggling really to say too much about this without spoilers. The easy thing to do for me would be to flash up the spoiler tag and just say, well, don't listen to it if you don't want to listen to these spoilers, because I'm so tempted to talk about the endings, and I know that would... But the endings are good. The ending I had made me feel like all my choices leading up to that point mattered. And when I read all the others, just out of curiosity, I felt, yeah, these are good, satisfying endings. They work well, and I would like I would like to read it a bit more today because there's at least 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections that I have on my map, but I just didn't take the time to explore because eventually I got too caught up in not me as a player, but my character. And also, I just want to compliment the fact that it is kept very gender neutral. And whilst the other characters are gendered for sure, you are never referred to. It just occurred to me halfway through, like it was definitely a lot more egalitarian than the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, where you've got that little bit at the start where all the women are crying because you leave, and it's like, really, are we still doing those kinds of stereotypes? 38, yep, it was 38 years ago, and that's why this is okay. But this is like an adventure book for a new generation. This is an adventure book where you've got a map. You, after your second chapter, you go exploring. You decide, I want this way. And then once you've looked at a couple more places, more locations might open up on the map. And then you might find out about more locations that you can go and visit. And then you'll learn more and more about this wonderful world until eventually it finishes and then it's satisfied. So that is my personal experience with the game. I feel like, who would I recommend this to? I would recommend it to people who want a choose your own adventure book where you're doing a bit more reading and not feeling obliged that you have to flip from thing to thing. None of the choices that you make are ever going to kill you. That's it. That's not a spoiler. That's just almost a mission statement for what they were trying to do. Even if you do something completely ridiculous, you're not going to die. You might, let's say, end up in a worse situation, but that will be taken to its logical conclusion. I mean, I had a situation where I was like, oh my gosh, and in this, if you are bonked on the head, you go into prison and then you come out and it's like another couple of paragraphs. In this, if you're, if something bad happens, if you find someone, the kind of choices that you're making are, do you offer this person medicine? Like early on, what is your special item? Because you choose in a roundabout way what your special skill is and your special item, whether that aids your survival or whether you're able to give people medicine. And along the way, are you going to be compassionate to people? Are you going to help overthrow some regimes in this old world? I mean, I'm not going to say that it gets into, national politics, because it's very much this small corner. It's like, basically, imagine the distance that you could walk in 10 days. That's kind of the distance that you're covering. So it's maybe one small part of a coast. But you go from place to place and you find out things, and there is a social structure, and you might be changing things, and there's something. Anyway, yeah, I would. Okay, again, look, I am intrinsically biased because I like these people as friends and I've signed up a game with them, but I think that if this sounds interesting, go off and get the digital version. It's also really nicely hyperlinked, so you just click on the things and then it takes you forward to the different chapters. It's very readable. The text is very large. I mean, it's nice. For the most part, it's well laid out. There's a couple of very small pointers that I made. Yeah, I mean, even on that tiny window, I can just about read it if I look close. So, yep, that is Alba. And if anyone has any questions, then feel free to ask. Otherwise, yep, that is. That is Alba. It can be called a game. It's not quite the same because it's a book that is more reading than making strategic decisions. It is a story game. It is all about expressing yourself in some manner. And so, yeah, whereas these feel like game books that you win. And it's very much, okay, you look at it and chapter 400, you've got, okay, this is the one true ending. Now, of the 7 endings, one of them is if you get lost, and some of them are based on your emotional states. And I will say that the ending that I got, I personally feel like that's the best ending. But it depends on you. I mean, it's like, let's say you've played Fable 2 on the Xbox. You go through and then you make these choices. Do you want to be a good person or a bad person? And you might play it once and be like, okay, I want to make all the good choices and be really the kind of person that I would like to be benevolent and be compassionate and be caring. And then you go through again and you're like the most bloodthirsty tyrant, and then you slaughter everyone who comes into your way. And yeah, that these different endings, they wrap it up. They feel like they do bring it together, and it's whatever you do, you are going to get a satisfying conclusion. It's not like, oh, you got killed by a vampire and that's it. Okay, I'm going to redo the 3rd issue. This is very much a, you know what, no matter how it is, you will get a long story. You will be able to sit down for a few sittings for reading it for a few hours, and then you'll get a satisfying story. And then I reckon that you've got about 2, maybe 3 readings where it's completely different. And then after that, it's going to feel like, okay, at this point, it depends on the person. At what point do you personally start seeing the mechanisms of something? And personally, I am someone who, no matter the board game, I see the mechanisms quite often. Like, I'm all about, but eventually that suspension of disbelief will dissipate a little bit. And like any game book, you will start comparing the different options, maybe cheating a little bit. And that's okay. But yeah, I would say for playing legally, this is the most guaranteed satisfaction out of any game book. That, yeah, if you want to long sit down and reading, brilliant stuff, and comes highly recommended. Anyway, again, bear all my biases in mind. Now, let me talk about some podcasts, because that is maybe what everyone is here to listen to. Last time we got to Magic the Gathering Drive to Work. Today, I am going to be talking about On Board Games, which is, I believe, the first board game podcast I ever listened to. So back in the day, I was a big fan of Scott Nicholson. I mean, I'm not saying that I've got any issues with Scott Nicholson, but still a great person. Used to make great videos, no longer makes great board game videos because they don't make any board game videos at all, great or otherwise. But yeah, Scott Nicholson is like the OG, original gangster board game YouTube reviewer. Yeah, Tom Vassell did a lot of stuff as well, but feel like Scott Nicholson was one who did a lot of, okay, I'm going to now actually compare games. Hey, let me, and not just sticking to a formula, but if we trace back, okay, who was Shut Up, Sit Down, no pun included, like, was there, and like the closest that I can come to is Scott Nicholson. Like Scott Nicholson having these funny intros, having a bit of a laugh. Yeah, Scott would tell you how the game plays and all of that, but then Scott might also make a, hey, here's a whole bunch of games for, if you like Monopoly, here's some other games to play that are a bit like Monopoly. Hey, Sid Saxon's Acquire, that's a bit like Monopoly. If you like this other aspects of Monopoly, get I'm the Boss if you like to make the big deal. And then, so on board games, it all started with Scott Nicholson, Donald Dennis, and Eric Dewey. It's been going now for 431 episodes. There we go. I've listened to, I think I've listened to all of them. Anyway, I've definitely listened to all of the ones that are available on Apple Podcast, and I had listened to 100 or so before I started listening to them again. But what I liked about this is they have half the show about reviews. They also have half a show about a certain topic. So that might be, the topic might be, hey, let's talk about, whoops, just going to accidentally started. The topic might be about shedding your games, or it might be about playing with mittens on. What was that one? Prototyping digitally. Sometimes the titles don't really let you know. I mean, playing with mittens on, okay, I remember what it was because someone said, okay, playing Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator, it's like playing with mittens on. Problem players, about art, about just having rants, about the expansions, about all sorts of things, about classic games. And then I like this because, yeah, there's a really nice balance of reviewing and topic discussion. I would say that I am always more interested in the topic discussion because for me, the topic discussion, it's relevant always, whereas the reviews, okay, some of these games, yeah, later on you might not be as interested in them, like maybe games change, games have evolved, but yeah, I think that On Board Games is my favorite podcast to listen to whilst I'm cycling and kind of thinking about other things. I know this sounds really weird, but I really like having, that game that they're talking about. Oh, I wonder if there could be another game a bit like that. And then suddenly my mind kind of totally twists that game and turns it into something else. So it's in a weird way, even though they're not, it's also the hosts that they've got now. Scott Nicholson is no longer there. Donald Dennis and Eric Dewey is still there. And they've got Kathleen Mercury, who's an amazing board game educator. Isaac Shalev, who's a great game designer. I am biased. We've ostensibly started a co-design, although we're not really working on that right now. Maybe I should get back to that. Anyway, and we've got, that's Party Gamecast. Bruce Vogue, who hosts the Party Gamecast, featuring the Party Gamecast, the podcast about party games and games you take to parties. Anyway, so normally they've got 2 or 3 of these people, plus a special guest. That special guest, I mean, I've been on this show, so again, I am biased. I'm also biased because it's the first podcast I've ever listened to. But I just think that if you were to only listen to one podcast, if someone were to say, hey, I want to listen to a board game podcast, I'm not really a board game designer, but, I'm interested in listening to board game design related things. I'm interested in listening to board game reviews. I would say, honestly, this is the best podcast, in my opinion, for a general, it's got a bit of everything. It's got a nice rotating cast of characters. You've got, a good chunk of people. And yes, they've got people who are there because I go there because I really like talking to them, and honestly, it was a great honor that they had me on a second time. Although I think I only recorded 2 episodes, and my second episode was lost because of technical issues that I will blame either Kathleen or Isaac Shrille with, but it was definitely one of them. I definitely recorded my end of it. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, we had a great show that will never be heard. But yeah, maybe people come on because they want to say, oh yeah, by the way, I do have this thing coming out. And yes, there's always a slight self-promotional thing of going onto a podcast and putting yourself forward. But they do make sure that, yes, if you come on, you need to get in touch 2 or 3 months ahead. If you can't just go on and say, hey, I'm going to talk about word games because I happen to make a word game, and now I want to use all the examples from my word game and talk about how amazing my word game is for an hour. No, that's not what the show is about. This show is about, hey, let's talk about, maybe I should talk to them about how dancing is like a game, and yes, there's going to be some repeat topics, and it's more about the people. It's about the joy. It's about the lovely people, and they are such lovely people, and that is why I listen to On Board Games, because yeah, it's a grab bag. It's lovely stuff. And so that is one that I heartily recommend. Honestly, all of these shows, by the way, all of these podcasts are podcasts that I've listened to all of, and I recommend them all because I would not have listened to all of them if I did not think they were good. So let's me go on to the next one, which is Order from Chaos, which was a short-running show. It is, let's see, 7 episodes only. It ran from February 2020 until June 2020. And I guess it's not going to come back but it had, I want to say Mike DeLisio, Matthew Jude, and Dan Hughes. Yep, Dan Hughes, who's been, and so 3 blokes who talk about some things. And for example, in the first episode, they talk about bandanas, cassette tapes, dogs barking, selfies, and Worcester sauce. What they do is they put it into this program which helps you have an order, and I think about 5 times during the show they say, okay, this or that, which one's better? Is it Worcester sauce that's better, or dogs barking? Well, no, dogs barking, it can kind of keep you awake at night. And then they have a vote, so there's 3 of them, so there's never going to be a tied vote. And then by the end, they will have decided which is the ranking for these 5 completely unrelated things. The idea is, hey, here, throw just a bunch of things into the mix. Now, this is not a board game podcast. It is board game adjacent because all of these people are, you could say, board game personalities. And I enjoyed it all. I enjoyed it. It gets your mind thinking. The topic, I mean, the basic premise. Hey, let's talk about a bunch of things. Hey, is paper better than bottles? Well, I don't know. I mean, I could talk about that. I mean, bottles are pretty good for holding your drinks. If you didn't have bottles, then you couldn't take drinks very far because presumably, I mean, then you've got to ask, does a thermos flask count as a bottle? Yeah. I mean, if you didn't have bottles, would we all be using thermos flasks? I mean, that does seem a wee bit wasteful, though. I mean, it feels like, but then would we all be using cartons? Like, does a carton, like an apple juice carton or a milk carton, does that count as a bottle? And then we get into these kinds of discussions, and you can imagine how that thing would go. And then talk, well, if we didn't have paper to write on, well, maybe we would be writing on slate. And offhand, I think that paper is better than bottles, but those are 2 pretty darn awesome things. I would not want to live in a world without either of them. But if that kind of thing sounds at all interesting, they do a good job. It's enjoyable to listen to. I wouldn't say I laughed. I don't tend to. It's a weird one. Like, I mean, just because you don't laugh doesn't make it bad comedy. I actually found it engrossing. I found it made me curious. I found it got me thinking, and yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. And my bias is basically just that I've had Dan Hughes on this show, and I vaguely know of these people. So next podcast, pardon me, our turn, women on gaming. So this has been going for a while, and then there was a hiatus, and then it came back actually really recently. So let me skim back. Oh wow, 2016. So it started in June 2016, and it's been going basically multiple times a month. I think it's every 2 weeks pretty much. It went from 2016 until the end of 2019. So 2019, it was episode 109 in June 2009. So they had run for 3 years, and then they said, you know what, this is going to be the last episode for a while. And I thought that was going to be it, but I was subscribed. And then, a while ago, this year, they came back. And it was lovely to hear them. And a few things. Firstly, Kathy, I don't know if this has been a change with Kathy's personality, but Kathy used to, whenever and hi Kathy, like whenever Kathy was talking about a person, it would be like this kind of in joke that it's like, oh yeah, the only person listening to this show are your friends. Like when I talk about Alex, hi Alex, or um, yeah. And speaking of which, I'm going to have an intermission after this, and then I'm going to sing a quick song. And yeah, first person to guess who it's dedicated to will win something. If I can remember the lyrics, I just want to get those lyrics. And anyway, so our turn, women in gaming. It was 2016. That was a kind of time when, and it still exists. There's still a bit of a lack of representation of women, and there should be. And I notice it on my show, like when I'm looking at English speaking people, when I'm trying to work hard to reach out to folk, and it's like, even if I'm trying to find people of color, like who else is there who's at a similar time zone to me that I could reach out to? And I tried having Japanese person on, but going through a translator wasn't too great. Had a few folk from Nigeria, Casey, Yoshida. I'm sure there's at least a couple more folk that could come on. I'm trying to Obu, the board game poets. I can't remember what their real name is, but yeah. Anyway, it was a show. It was somewhat about redressing the balance, but having said that, they do have Stephen Bonacore on one of the shows. I am biased because I reached out to them and I asked to be on the show, and I was very honored to be on the show. And I mentioned that I was excited to have them back, and then I would love to be on their show again for sure. I think that for the most part, again, yeah, you know what? This is if this show had kept going, if this were as regular as on board games, I would be holding it equally. This is just as well produced. The guests are just as good, and sure, with on board games, it's more of a rotating cast. Here, there's Kathy is always going to be there. Kathy is the one host who is always there. There's also other hosts who come and go. There's Sarah Reed, board game designer. There's Doc Cross and Jesse, and there's people who've been there a few times, like Hannah Maria Jackson Phelps, been there a couple of times. But it's basically Kathy with Sarah Reed sometimes and Jesse. And then occasionally there's an extra person, and hey, let's have some of our friends on to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and it's from the lived experience. And so yeah, sure, there's the experience of people who are really into games. There's the experience of people who are really into traditional card games and are a bit more into that. There's the experience of some people come on who are really into Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sure there's some people coming on from the industry or designers like Sarah Reed and some guests like myself. And I would say that each episode there is a, hey, what have you been playing recently? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how we're enjoying it. But it's very, very much focused on the topic. Even like, I'm trying to actually remember what episode it was that I was on, but it's like Games with Dice, sure. When, even if we're talking, that might be, it's a good show. It's lovely to listen to. There's friendly folk. There's wonderful conversations. And the past 2 episodes, the only ones for the past year, one of them just about, hey, how have things been for the past year and a half? And yeah, obviously talking about not so much the second half of 2019, but mainly what's been happening in 2020 with times of isolation, and that was an interesting chat. And so it is interesting to hear these things, and having Kathy as a constant voice that feels very much like you're becoming familiar friends, and it's lovely. I feel like this is, again, there's no gimmick, there's no big, whoa, this is so different. By the same point, everything's well made. And I would, again, recommend this. There's 100-something episodes. I've listened to them. They're all good. Next show is a very short one. Play is the Thing, done by, I want to say Minket, who talks to people who are in the gaming industry and in the generally non-digital gaming space, but not the kind of people that you would normally have on a board game show. So episode 1, talking to a psychologist about what is a game. Episode 2, James Wallace, who you might have heard of, who made Baron Munchausen, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, and Once Upon a Time. And then, yeah, Sam Illingworth, who does games for change almost, psychology professors, authors, books, someone who's talking about using games in hospitals. Yeah, someone talking about playful learn. It's analyzing play. It's not about how games are designed. It's not about board games. We don't normally talk about games in these shows. It's normally all about a bunch of vague friends, and there were only 20 episodes, I want to say. It ran from March to December 2019, so a little bit less than a year. This is a really, really good show. It does, and I say it's really, really good show. If you want to find out about the emotional state and the psychology behind board games, this is one that I would 100% recommend. And hello, Jay Foolsguard. Thanks for the. I'm glad that you are happy with the idea. And hello, Rob. Yeah, plays the thing, as you can see in the little banner down there. That is the title. So look it up. Did I actually write it correctly? Yep. Play is the Thing. Like that. And so, yep, that's it. I do remain subscribed to it, but I don't expect any new podcasts to be released for it. It was a great show. Pointless Parrot podcast. Wait a minute. Let me change this. This is going to be the penultimate thing that I was going to talk about today, because I decided to leave a few more to talk about another day. So Pointless Parrot podcast, you might know Emma Janssen, also known as M Zaya on Twitter. who also streams quite a bit, who does all sorts of lovely things. And there are 24 episodes. It ran from January until December, and Emma is planning to carry on after a wee bit of a break, and I'm looking forward to having this. Each episode is with someone. So each episode and is with someone that Emma likes, I think. I think that's basically what's going on. So there was one episode. Episode 4 was completely different. Episode 4 was actually my favourite. Episode 4 was a scripted thing with Aizabasa, and it wasn't an interview, it was kind of like a comedy sketch show. Every other one of the episodes, we've got Ross from Chits and Giggles, we've got Stella from Meatball University, Monique, who used to be Parrot, who's the Game Freak girl. Oh no, wait, that was Monique from Before You Play. Leyland Steele, Matthew Jude, Emily from The Incorrigible Club, Paul Dean, made famous, Paula Denning, Efka, Elaine, Jessica Davis, Game Freak Monique, John Gonzalez, Calvin and Dee, Richard Simpson, Nat, Nat from Potato, Anna-Marie Jackson Phelps, and Ruel and Joseph Chen, Crystal Dax. Anyway, each of these episodes are, except for that one that was a sketch show that I mentioned, every episode is just a long, rambling conversation. Generally about 40 to 60 minutes, just talking about whatever. If you thought that this show was rambling, then you ain't seen nothing yet. My show is not rambling at all compared to the Pointless Parrot podcast. If you want rambling shows, this is the show to go for. If you want, hey, we're going to have board game people on, but we're probably not going to talk about board games, then this is the show to go for. If you want to hear Anna Maria Jackson Phelps talking about food, if you want to hear like the Cardboard Kids, like just struggle to think of what to talk about. If you want to talk about Calvin and Dee, talk about how like Dee teases Calvin. If you want to hear like Richard Simpson of We're Not Wizard, talk about how like, you know, it's a wee bit, being a bit grumpy is okay. And like there's, yeah, it's a lovely, lovely show. And it's like, yeah, I at the time, this is one of, when you listen to this, if your heart is in a dark place, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, why are all these people laughing so much? Why are they all happy? Why can't I be happy like that? And so maybe, you know, you'll think, oh, I wish I were happy like that. And then you listen to Richard Simpson and you're like, you know what? I'm closer to how Richard Simpson is, and that makes me feel a bit more okay. But Emma does such a wonderful job of putting the guests at ease and just pursuing the threads, and like something might start to be talked about, and then you unravel at it. And it's kind of like an improv conversation talk show where what we're saying is like, okay, let's not talk about this. And I had Emma on my show a couple of times. One was about staying neutral, which was very much inspired by maybe 5 minutes with Leyland Steele. And then, yeah, I know Xate says that was one of the worst shows of mine ever. But, oh my God, I was going to do a song. But anyway, so yeah, Pointless Parrots podcast. If you want to hear rambling, then this is the show to go for. And so, yep, that is the show for rambling. And I will do my final thing, and then I'll sing the song that I mentioned. So, and I am happy that at least one of the shows that I've talked about has sounded interesting to you. That's what it's all about. giving wee recommendations. And maybe it's the show that you might want to hear. If you don't want to hear rambling, then don't listen to Pointless Parrot podcast. By the same token, if you don't want to hear, if you want to hear reviews from the point of view of a sighted person, then don't listen to this show. If you don't want to learn about, what it's like to play a game when you are visually impaired, don't listen to this show. This show is another one that sadly stopped, but there's nothing else like it. So episode 0, November 2018, it went on until November 2019, episode 16. It was a good show. There are also free bonus episodes, which are more about, okay, let's talk about this. But these episodes, these talk about, I'll do a recap in a minute. It's all good. Or you can listen if you want to have the full blether. But these episodes, they talk about helper apps. What's that going to be like? A board game meetup. What's that going to be like? Pandemic, quarterbacking, and all of these things from the point of view of someone who's visually impaired. Now, if you want to play games with a wider audience, if you want to be able to empathize with people who are visually impaired, if you want to design, if you're designing games, or if you're at all involved in the creation of games, definitely listen to this. I would say if you're involved in the creation of games, you want to be able to think about the people who are playing, not just the people who have, full, who are exactly like you, but you want to be thinking about people who aren't like you. You want to be thinking about people who are a different gender, a different ethnicity, a different ability. And this might not help with a lot of that, but it will certainly help you empathize and understand a little bit from the perspective of just one individual, of course, but one individual who is visually impaired. And this is so, what's the word I was going to use? This is so, I feel like it's got to end in a consonant. I can't just say this is so pieing brilliant. This is so super brilliant. I'm just going to say that. This is super brilliant. This is super helpful for anyone who wants to be able to empathize. And as humans, isn't a little bit of empathy something that we would all benefit from? And so, yeah, that is what I have to say about that. Okay, so let me change that banner to so on board games. I love that podcast, and I'm biased because I started listening to it first, and I've been on it, and I think that it is a great show for just getting to hear from a variety of folk. It is very male-centric, I am going to admit. Out of the regular hosts, Don Dennis, Eric Dewey, Kathleen Mercury, Bruce Vogue, Isaac Shalev. Sure, it's not as diverse as it could be, but it's... yeah, there's a good cast of voices. On board games, they've got a good variety of topics. It's a good show. I heartily recommend it for a general board game entertainment. Order from Chaos. Short run with some funny board game reviewer people saying which thing is better. Is dog barking better, or is medicine better? And then in each episode, they rank these 5 things. If that sounds funny, if that sounds amusing, if that sounds like something that would titillate you, then listen to it. Our Turn, Women on Gaming. Again, this is a more typical gaming podcast. Starts off, what have you been playing recently? Now let's get into a bit of a subject. And now it occurs to me that I myself follow a similar format. It's like, hey, what have you been enjoying recently? Now let's get into formats. Our Turn, as the name would imply, it is focusing on people who are not male. I have been on the show, Anna Maria Jackson Phelps, Sarah Reid, all sorts of amazing people, and Kathy is the constant host. Kathy definitely gives the show a certain consistency and sets the tone, and it is a loving, friendly, welcoming tone. And at the end, they say, that was our turn, now it's yours. And I think that sums it all up. It's so lovely and embracing. Play is the thing, all about psychology. If that sounds interesting, check that out. Pointless Podcast, Parrot Podcast, that epitomizes the blethering. Sightless Fun, that's all about learning what it's like to be a visually impaired person playing board games. And Alba, that was a game book from... Yeah, let me try and find a window and... why can't I... Oh, here we go. Yep. So, yeah, beautiful, lovely illustrations, a more sedate manner than most things. It reminds me almost of young adult fiction. There's a couple of F-bombs in there. The cover tells you pretty much what's going on. It's a typical one person exploring a world, finding out what's there. After the second chapter, it's like, okay, you could go here or you go here. And you actually leave notes on your map. And yeah, at the time, I was like, this is a really weird thing, but it's like, okay, going to a new chapter, it feels like a landmark. And it kind of... So yeah, each time you go to a new chapter, it's like, oh, wow, there's a new big event that's happening here. It's not just a tiny little thing. You know that this event is going to be dealt with in a serious, not in a, maybe, we're not going to learn necessarily in a gritty, realistic way the effects of radiation poisoning, but in a serious, as in, it's going to give a little bit of detail. It's not going to just say, oh, you got captured. Oh, you managed to rush out in a couple of pages. There's going to, oh, you go to meet these people. Oh, you say goodbye. I mean, sure, you could probably in some situations make choices to run away as quickly as you want. But if you want to explore this thing, if you're going to the ship, something important will happen at the ship. If you go to the power plant, there will be important things at the power plant. And these are very, very mild spoilers for the first two chapters. Like, you will hear about this, and that's just setting your expectations for this is kind of what you're going to be getting out of this game. Yep, I've really enjoyed my one read through and my additional kinds of meandering with. So yeah, that was, oh my gosh, I almost forgot I had a song. So that was my recap. I was going to talk about potentially, where is it? I was going to talk about Usagi Yojimbo, but I can't find it straight away anyway. And yeah, Usagi Yojimbo, I think that it's really good, great comic. I will talk about that more at a later date. So that is the recap. And if you want to check me out, then I'm stuffbybez.com, stuffbybez.bigcurse.com, twitter.com/stuffbez, instagram.com/stuffbez, twitch.tv/stuffbez. I am streaming every day at 10 a.m. UK time, youtube.com/stuffbybez for the old episodes, and stuffbybez.com/discord. Please go to my Discord if you aren't already. And I should put up the banner, there is going to be a thing in February. There is going to be a game jam. That's the word I'm looking for. And guess who I am. Okay, before we leave, I would like to have one quick song. Oh, is this even going to... Okay, that wasn't my internet. Okay, guess who I am singing about. When I say who, this is very tangentially. Okay. Someone once asked me the reason why I wear a Christmas jumper out of season. I'm not shy, I'm not gonna lie. So I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you twice. It's warm and I think it is cozy. It's quite comfortable to me. It dries quite also quickly, within a couple of hours or three. And it is a good color, it's red. I like to wear this jumper to bed. So guess who asked me about this? Oh my gosh. Okay. Someone once asked me the reason why I wear a Christmas jumper out of season. I'm not shy, I'm not gonna lie. And I'll tell you the reason, I'll tell you twice. It is warm and comfy. It is quite comfortable to me. It dries quite quickly, within a couple of hours or three. And I like the color, it is red. I like to wear my jumper to bed. True story. And was it Xate? No, it was not Xate who asked about my Christmas jumper. Was it Ross? No, it was not Ross. You can keep on guessing as long as you don't guess twice in a row. Was it Emma? No, it was not Emma. Maybe I'll just start singing some more about this individual. I don't know if they've ever been in a band. They come from the Netherlands. And they are named after someone from a series of films that folk find fun. I had them on my show quite recently. You might have seen them talking with me. Rob, I'm afraid it was not you. Yes, Jay Foolsguard, it was Dutch Yoda. So, yeah. There we go. So, congratulations to Jay Foolsguard. I guess when I said they come from the Netherlands, and did you get that I was talking about Star Wars when I said named after a character in a film that someone might find fun? Anyway, you win 1,000 points. Congratulations. You're now on 3,500 pretty much. And Harper Rob gets 500 points. So now you're on, wow, 9,500 pretty much. At some points, I'm going to have some expensive, like, deluxe prizes for some people who've got, like, tens of thousands of points. I don't know when, but at some point. You know, certainly, if I've not already... I was expecting to... Yeah, sorry, I'm just thinking about how even 2021 is not going the way I expected. Yep, I thought that things would be different. So a month ago, I mean, this whole resurgence in London. But, yeah. You know what? There'll be some... I'll think of what kind of can be better. I'm kind of almost thinking, okay, maybe I'll give some sort of sticker packs to people on Bez Day if they've got enough points. Or maybe if I'm still in London, then I'll give away some games to some people who've got points. And what I'm thinking is, rather than saying, hey, this is a drawing, and I'll draw for you with the points because that's too much. I've decided that that's a bit. Hold on, I'm going to wear my glasses because I've decided that's a bit too much. What's the word I'm looking forward for? Too much stress. Yeah, stress, I guess. If I have people saying, "Hey, can you draw me this?" and I'll be thinking, what if I don't draw it well enough? What if they're not happy with their drawing? So what I'm instead going to do is I'm going to just draw a bunch of things. And then if people like those things, then they can win those things with the Bezzy bonuses. Like say, hey, I like that drawing. I'm going to buy that drawing with my Bezzy bonuses. That is my idea, vaguely. Anyway, so we had the recap. We then I sang a song, and now I am recapping everything that's happened since then. And as much as I don't want to say goodbye, the time has come to go. And all you lovely people that I know. And so, and so, and so, I hope you're going to have a good day. And so I say, thank you, everyone. So over to you. What are you up to? You can share anything you want to. So, what are you looking forward to doing? What are you planning for today? I am going to be sharing the calendar in Instagram and Twitter and Facebook about what I'm for my things, and then I'm going to be taking it easy and avoiding the computer as much as I can for like I'm going to avoid social media, and I'm going to avoid pondering game design for Sunday. This is what I'm trying to do. Like once a week, have half a day where I don't. So I'm not going to listen to any board game podcasts. I might listen to other types of podcasts. I might wander around. I might play a game for pleasure with family. Although, yeah, it is kind of a review copy, which is. But still, the priority is very much on. Oh, and thank you, Jay Foolsguard, for being here. Oh, this is exciting. Rob Harper is going to cook some pizzas, trying out the new. Wait, you've got a pizza oven? Like, not just a regular oven, but a pizza oven. A special pizza oven. That sounds awesome. Jay Foolsguard's going to play some games on Board Game Arena later. Yeah, Board Game Arena. Is that with Xate by any chance? Oh no, Xate's got the real life thing because apparently. You know what? I might actually have a wee read of Pretty Little Mistakes. It's been a while since I read that. I might also read some comics. Depends on what I think. I will do some sort of mixture of eating. I've not had breakfast yet. I did have a big dinner, but I'm going to have some breakfast soon-ish. Might do some reading, whether that's game books or comics. I might not read anything I might read something. You know what? I said that's also going to think about board game design, but now I'm going to go back on that. If I feel interested in it, I am going to still read a book about board game design just because it's quite different to what I normally do. It's all about changing my thing, if you know what I mean. Like, but yeah. What else might hopefully play some games with family. Hopefully chat with family a wee bit. Maybe see if family wants to go out for a walk. I know that Parrot, who just came back from hospital, isn't meant to go out, but might say to them, hey, do you want to go out just round the block together? Because I think you're meant to go out for 10 minutes today, or 10 minutes of walking. So shall we go around together? And we can just have a wee chat. That might be nice. That's what I'm personally looking forward to. So Rob apparently has a portable outside pizza oven. We treated ourselves. So, as in it's in your garden, is that what you mean? And when you say it's portable, you mean it's actually hard to set up. And what I'm hearing is it's kind of really time consuming to set up. Can cook up to 12-inch pizza. So that's 30 centimeters. So that's about this much, right? I mean, so that's like 12-inch pizza. Like, yeah, you could have one pizza for 2 people, or maybe, share a pizza, but share a few pizzas, like have 4 pizzas for 4 people, but have like, okay, maybe each person has a quarter of each pizza. Are there 3 of you, Rob? I can't. Am I right in thinking that there's probably going to be 3 people involved in this pizza making? And which book are you going to have a look at? I honestly don't know. I brought a whole bunch of books. Oh wait, there's so much. Actually, you know what? Got bits of painting and let me actually. I'm not going. I will show you tomorrow. I will. It's a wee bit hard to get out. It would take me maybe 1 more minute. But yep, thanks for the validation, encouragement, permission. Yeah, permission. Because sometimes I think we don't give ourselves permission. So we need to have someone else to give us permission. And it's like, yeah, that's going to be my focus. I'm going to first do a tiny bit of, hey, these are my streams for coming up, and share that places, and then I will do whatever. And portable, you can carry the pizza around, but it's pretty heavy. Well, the pizza cooker, pretty easy to set up though. And oh my gosh, there's 3 of us. We're making 4 pizzas and are expecting a load left over. Well, Rob, you clearly do not. You do not eat as much as me. That's all I'm going to say about that. You are not as greedy as me. If there were pizzas, I would want to eat them while they were hot. Yo, says Stream Elements. It is stretching time. Thank you for reminding me, Stream Elements. I'm actually going to change this so it's that's meant to come up every 37 minutes, but it also only comes up if there's been enough chats. I'm going to set it so it comes up a wee bit more regularly. So let me squish my chair back and raise my legs. And hey, Rob doesn't feel like you should be. Do you mean like you don't feel like you should have to give me permission? Is that what you mean? I mean, there's nothing wrong. Like, I should have permission to do that. But yeah, I get what you mean. You shouldn't have to give me permission. Okay, so that is me. And let's see. For my next streams, look at stuffbybez.com/streams, and that will redirect you as always. Tomorrow is Chaotic Shenanigans, and so we'll be reaching into this bunch of tasks. Musical shenanigans on Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday and Thursday, I'm just going to be playing tunes. Some of them will be about board games, but you will not get any points for guessing them, because there'll be things that's already sung before. Wednesday, I will be going back and redoing the 3rd section of Warlock of Firetop Mountain. Friday, as always, Friendly Friday Forum. Saturday is meeting Matt Warwick, and next Sunday I'll be reviews. So that is my next week of what I am talking about. And Bob says, I'm not the boss of you. But sometimes it's nice to have a boss. Sometimes it's nice to have someone giving you helpful, lovely advice. But yeah, if you have enjoyed this, share, spread the word. Indeed, with all of these things, if you think that, well, actually, I'm going to do a really quick shout out to Alba, because again, I am biased because I am friends with a lot of the people involved, and also inside the box are, I meant to share that to all destinations, so I'm going to share that a second time on Twitch. Sorry about this. So I am biased because I've got a game signed with them. I have a financial interest in the continued goodness and in them doing good stuff. But yeah, if you want to check it out, please do. And I think it's well worth chipping in a quid to support, yeah, game books, to say, hey, we respect this and let's put a little bit more effort into some game books. I think this is the first time that there's been like a board game publisher, and so I've advised them on getting Rachel Mortimer to do some proofreading for that final bit of polish. But yeah, share, spread the word, whether it's about that, whether it's about my show, whether it's about any of the podcasts. Check them out. And my internet seems to be holding up okay for at least a few more minutes. So to check out what's going on, although since we've only. And hello, B Samo. It is love happy to have you in the chat with us. I am currently based in Glasgow, although you could consider me a Scottish Iranian. And yeah, as we go to raid, feel free to check out, to copy paste parts or all of that wee message. Who's playing? We have Nerds of the West. Is that Alice? Oh, we've got Erin Shea. Is Erin Shea doing music? Or we've got Harley. Oh, Harley's quite nice, and I don't think I've gone over to raid Harley before. So what do people feel like? Do people feel like a wee bit of energetic music or a bit more solo, casual thing with a guitar? Raid. Let's go with Harley Hutchinson. Harley Hutchinson. So that brings me to the end of the show. And for now, there is not much left to say other than thank you. It's been lovely. And bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. Now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.